who have fought for democracy of our nation under the United Nations flag. And today I would like to focus on the United States participation. So let's get it. So throughout the war, there were 60 nations that have sent combat troops and 6 nations that have provided medical support. And unfortunately, a lot of the soldiers have passed away during this war. They had to make an ultimate sacrifice. And all the soldiers, fallen heroes who were killed in action, are resting in peace in this memorial park called UN Cemetery Park located at Busan. And this memorial park is solely under UN jurisdiction. The vast majority of the remains have repatriated back to their home country, but still there are a lot of fallen heroes who are resting in peace in this cemetery park, which makes it really meaningful. And we have simulated the space here. So you might wonder how it started, so I would like to give you a brief rundown before the outbreak of the Korean War. So Korea was under Japanese occupation for 35 years, but after the defeat of Japan during the Pacific War following the Nagasaki and Hiroshima nuclear bombing incident, they were finally able to gain independence. But a lot of the superpowers thought that we had no governing power because we had been governed by Japanese government for 35 years. So they decided to just sign the trusteeship, cross the 38th parallel, and divide our nation into 2 parts. So from then on, it became, the Soviet Union occupied the north, and the United States occupied the south. So ideological conflict between communism and democracy became the starting point of the Korean War. And this was supposed to go on for 5 years, but Kim Il-sung, the leader of North Korea, had different plans. He wanted to make the entire Korean peninsula under communist ruling. So he asked for support to Stalin several times, and at first he was really reluctant because he had seen the nuclear capabilities of the United States during the Pacific War, so he didn't want it to be in a confrontational structure. However, soon after that, Soviet Union successfully launched a nuclear missile and heard the news that United States are no longer stationed in Korea anymore. By establishing an Edgerton line, he decides to directly engage in the sudden invasion planning. And finally, at the first week of June, the war was pretty much ready. Their defense poster was almost completely ready because all the weapons from the Soviet Union arrived in north, and the weapons were distributed across the nation. So there were skirmishing for around 3 months, but on the day, 25th of June, the war actually started because they crossed the 38th parallel for the first time. So this is a telegram report written by the U.S. ambassador to Korea. So if you take a closer look at this statement, it clearly states that North Korean forces invaded ROK territory at several points this morning. Action was initiated about 4 a.m. Ongjin blasted by North Korean artillery fire. About 6 a.m., North Korean infantry commenced a crossing parallel in Ongjin area, Kaesong area, Chuncheon area. An amphibious landing was reportedly made south of Gangnam on East Coast. So they were trying to attack us in every direction. And because they were backed by the Soviet Union, they brought 242 T-34 tanks, which guaranteed faster mobility than us because we have never seen tanks before. So the only weapons that we had possessed back then was just handmade grenades and cocktails. So had to launch multiple delaying actions to make sure that their actions were delayed. Anyhow, so by receiving this telegram report by the U.S. ambassador to Korea, President Truman had called for a meeting to the United Nations Security Council, and the reason why they had used international body instead was because they were afraid that this conflict might escalate into the Third World War, and they were trying to prevent that by using an international body. So in the first Security Council meeting, President Truman the UN had suggested North Korea to immediately suspend all combat actions and withdraw its troops from the 30th parallel, and UN requested the UN member countries to support the actions of UN without aiding the regime of North Korea. However, of course, North Korea didn't listen. So on the second Security Council meeting, we had to label North Korea as an aggressor, and UN member countries were recommended to provide necessary aid for the Republic of Korea to overcome armed attack and to recover international peace and safety. So to deploy troops to our Korean soil, this agenda was put on a vote, and 7 was in favor, and 2 was against it, and 2 stayed neutral. The reason why this agenda was able to be passed without Soviet Union veto, yes, because they were trying to boycott for the representation of China instead of Taiwan. And they didn't want it to reveal themselves as that they were part of the sudden invasion planning. But their absence has actually allowed us to receive support from the UN member states. So it was a very fortunate decision for us. So with the passage of this resolution, as you can see right here, the UNC, the United Nations Command, was established for the first time by receiving, as you can see right here in the photo, it's a photo of General MacArthur receiving the United Nations flag, being appointed as the very first Joint Chief of Staff of the UNC. And you can see a diorama right here. So he was the very first Joint Chief of Staff of the United Nations. And as you mentioned, he led the very famous and the very first counteroffensive attack called the Chilani Operation. By the time North Korean forces were trying to just occupy all of the land within just 30 days, and the reason for that was because it takes about 30 days for the United States forces to combine and help themselves. So he was the very first commander. With the success of his landing operation, we were able to recapture the city of Seoul again. And the second commander comes along, Ridgway, and Mark, the third and last commander of the UNC.
This page is for the project that focused second in Europe, where they can cover everything.
So this part, it shows the emotional toll of the Korean War. As you can see right here, it's a photo of families saying heartbreak goodbyes. And you can also see soldiers sharing brotherhood, which made them stay strong during a desperate situation. And a lot of the Korean orphans were taken care of by the UN soldiers as well. So this is again the simulation of the human cemetery park. A lot of families are jointly buried in this park. For example,
It's Busan, right?
yes, it's located at Busan. It's solely under UN jurisdiction, and there a lot of families are jointly buried together. For example, this couple from Australia, they were married a week before the outbreak of the Korean War. But this woman has stayed single for the rest of her life until 91. And she said, I wish to be buried with my husband. And her wishes were granted. And now they're resting in peace together in this human cemetery park.
How was the 2023, 2 years ago? I went to Busan.
Oh, so when you visited Korea 3 years ago,
Yeah, we
you
visited,
went there
yeah.
to the cemetery park.
Yeah, very nice.
Very nice.
A lot of Canadians over there. Canadians, yeah.
A lot of the Canadians remains.
The Canadians have the largest grave site.
Here, these two brothers are actually from Canada. It's rare to see brothers getting buried together, but surprisingly, this younger brother was enlisted for the service. Maybe we could move on to the United Nations section.
아니 이제 미국장까지만 보여드리고 시간이 짧아.
Okay.
괜찮으시면 공부에 다시 돌아오시니까 보고 싶으시면 그때 다시 관람하시는 거 권해드립니다.
So since we're running out of time, we reserve for luncheon at 11:30. So if you have time, you can come back after having lunch and I can give you a tour again.
I've been here before, it's him.
Would you like to come back and
Later.
around the museum after lunch?
그러면 지금 이동하시는 게 좋을 것 같아요.
I
네.
guess
택시가
it's
기다리고
better for
있어요.
us to just move
Another
now
day.
and then come back and see the museum again.
Another day. Another day.
Another day, okay. So just to explain this part, we have dedicated the largest space for the United States because they have sent the largest troop and they were the first to come.
그럼 지금 이쪽으로 나가시는 게
Oh, so this way it's way faster.